Hello guys. Um, Earlier we had completed our training session. After everything, I had thought um, we were recording the session, but unfortunately, while I was adding participants, I think I mistakenly stopped the recording. So at the end of the session, I realized that we had just 2 seconds, maybe like 2 minutes of recorded session. So I'm doing this recording again for the purpose of those that were not in the class or for every other person that wanted the refresher course. So I'm introducing you guys to PowerPoint. PowerPoint is a presentation tool. It can be used to create company brochures. It can be used to create slides to interpret your ideas. It can be used to create or present reports depending on what you want to achieve. It technically what it is a tool that is used to represent your idea or share your idea with people. It's basically a graphical tool. So some of the things we'll be looking at is, we'll talk about PowerPoint generally. We'll talk about the environment. As you can see here, you can see the ribbon. This part is called the ribbon. This is the thumbnail pane. This is the slide pane. This is the note pane. This is the status bar. That essentially some things that PowerPoint share in common with the likes of Microsoft Word, Excel, and Access. The softwares are called the Microsoft suite. So if you are used to Microsoft Word, technically it means that 20 to 30% of the tools that are in PowerPoint you probably already have been using them. So we want to see how to create a blank presentation, a template and theme-based presentation. Templates and themes are already existing template, like the word said, that you can adopt to create your slides. Then you can work with it, existing PowerPoint presentation. So now this is exactly how the PowerPoint environment looks like. It's a very for those that are new to it, it can look scary, but technically it's one of the easiest to use. It just has to do with understanding. So now there's a particular thing that you would always be doing is to add new slide. Now PowerPoint is called each sheet in a PowerPoint document or each page. The way we refer to it in Word is called a slide. It's something that you would have multiple slides to interpret your idea, your reports, or present whatever document you are pushing to your audience. Now, the menu that you'll be working with the most is to add new slide, because when you're done with the page, you want to move to the next page. You need to add a new slide. And this new slide comes with different layouts. Now, the layout are to just give you like a framework of how your intending slide should look like. So if you look at what we have here, this first one is like the cover page, the other one is like the table of content page, then you have subsection headers and the rest. We'll be looking at all these things in a bit. So layout helps you pull down the layout of the slide you want to work with. So you can also use the design area to apply themes, and these are things we'll be looking at. You can see how to format background, add text, bullet and numbering, paragraphing, playing with your table, charts, and smart art and the rest. So technically, we would use this document as a guide, so that we know all the areas we really want to touch. Now, for me, I would say PowerPoint is a document that is used for multi purpose. So for some organization, they use PowerPoint to create their e-brochure. That's what is happening most recently. They design their brochures in PowerPoint because it gives you the flexibility to draw objects, bring in images. It's more flexible to move objects around PowerPoint, unlike Microsoft Word that is a word editor. So with PowerPoint, you can do a lot of cool stuff similar to. So I'll show you some company profiles that have been done with PowerPoint. This was done with PowerPoint. They just converted it to PDF. So you can send this as an email to an organization to tell them about what you do, how you do it. your areas of expertise, your clients, and things like that. Let me show you some another one similar to what we have. So, like I said, a lot of companies now use PowerPoint to design e-brochures. So, these are things that you share via email. If your client wishes to print it, if you are going for a meeting, you can print it as well to aid your meeting and presentation. So that's another one I just shared. Let's just look for something a bit different for you know sorry. So we have other documents that you would have designed with PowerPoint. Talk about your table of contents. Speak around how it works, the different areas you want your client to look at. Talk about your team. Talk about timelines. About your company, your clients, your solution and conclusion. So these are the kind of things that we are hoping to see how we can achieve with this training. In our training earlier, we had agreed that we would spend today looking at the key components of PowerPoint, and tomorrow we'll design a proper, maybe like a brochure that speaks to uh, what we want to do. So quickly, before we start, we would say let's start with a new PowerPoint slide. Now, this environment is what is used to depict your design in PowerPoint. So this place, like we had earlier seen, is called the ribbon. The ribbon. This is the thumbnail pane. This is your slide itself. And one thing you would be very familiar with is the file menu in every of the Microsoft Office. The file menu. You want to start a new presentation, you use this. If you already have an existing PowerPoint presentation that you want to look at, you just browse for it. Go to where your slides are located, then you open the particular slide you want to look at. So that way you can run through. Now, if you see on my left pane, this part that is moving, that's the area I call the thumbnail, where if you click on each one, it takes you straight to that particular slide. You can talk around what you want to do there. You can refer to what you intend to do there. So if I have to make changes to this particular slide, I just go there. These are text-based, and I type what I want. So this is how to open an existing PowerPoint slide. Something I didn't remember to mention earlier in your thumbnails. This is your working environment, and you want to view your presentation in a slideshow. That is the full screen, taking away all the working environment. This is how it looks like. So once you click on any button, it changes to the next slide. These are different transition effects that have been added to this slide. We will also be looking at all this. But in the meantime, what I want to quickly show you is when you click on the thumbnail here, you have the liberty to move them. You can move a thumbnail, so meaning that, I want this to come before this one, or I want this black slide to come immediately after the first slide, or the black slide should be the first slide. So it means if I go to my slideshow, it takes the sequence of the thumbnails as it's arranged here. Okay, so that's that. So we also mentioned in our introduction that the new slide helps you bring in a new slide. So if I click on the new slide, what this does, it gives me different framework of layout. So is this the structure of the new slide that I want? Do I want a blank new slide? Do I want the one with just the title? Do I want the one that has two content segments? So PowerPoint, because it understands that you want to do a presentation, it will most likely suggest the appropriate slide to you. So this is the first slide. So let's say we want to create a slide for Benija Empowerment Program. So, and I say this is an initiative from our boss, Chesson. So this way we have created a landing, like a cover page. So if I need to move to the next slide, which is the next object, I'll click on new. I can choose any of these layouts. So most likely the next layout should be something similar to table of content, where the first item would say introduction, definition. The next one says problem statement, solution, conclusion. So we move again to say the next slide. Let's say the next slide, I just need something that has a heading and I say introduction, which is the next page. And in introduction, I need an image here and a text here. So I come to insert. Now, something you need to put in mind is while you're using a software like PowerPoint, you must understand that when you need to bring in an object, you have to go to the insert menu. It's that simple. So even if you're not very sure of what you want to do, you know that, okay, you're working with PowerPoint, you want to bring in something, whether from your system or from an external source, you have to come to insert. So insert pictures, insert picture album, insert shapes. I can actually insert a rectangle here. Maybe what I want to do, I need a rectangle to achieve it. Insert picture like what we had in mind initially. I just go straight to my pictures folder. Maybe I want to work with this wonderful people, and I have them here. So I can take out the rectangle. Maybe I don't need it at the moment. I take out the rectangle and I come back to insert and I type this is an intro to what we want to talk about. So let's just say I replicate the text. Let's say I replicate. Just want to replicate this text so this way doesn't look. So I replicate the text. Once you resize the object, it tries to resize, create a container for where the image would stay. So let's say this is the next page. I want to insert a new slide. I like to work with the blank one this time. So I say insert image. Again, let's say I want to work with multiple pictures. PowerPoint gives you the liberty to select multiple pictures. Just hold your control key to select multiple pictures, so you don't always have to go back there. So I have this here, I have this here. Now the point of our creating multiple pages is just to emphasize on there's a white image, so it's not showing. Let's bring in something dark. So let's just say we're bringing this guy. So we say the part about having multiple slides is so that we can move from one slide to the other while we're doing our presentation or while we're creating that ebook here that we want to share with our prospective clients. Now, I had mentioned that here you click on the slideshow to have a full screen of what you are doing. So what that means is I can see my presentation in full screen. So I go to the first slide, I click on slideshow, and by clicking on any button, it automatically moves to the next slide. So these are basic functionalities of PowerPoint that you probably want to quickly understand. So now, I had mentioned when you come to insert, everything that has to do with inserting objects is what you do here. So let me quickly insert a new slide, a new blank slide, so that we can play around some of the insert function. We've seen pictures. This is how you bring in images. Tables, insert tables, Tables, you want to bring in a table with 5 columns and 2 rows. So your table, if you look at the lines coming from top to bottom, that's the easiest way I can describe them. These are called columns. Then from left to right are called rows. So for the x-axis is a row. From the y-axis is a column. So if I have 5 columns and I have 8 rows, meaning that I have 5 columns, lines from top to bottom, and from left to right, 8 rows. Now, immediately you bring in a table, your design tab becomes active. Why? Because it wants you to be able to format it. So I can choose any of the colors around here. There's a knob down here that gives you the liberty to choose much more. So if there are other tab looking design that I prefer, I can pick any of them. Now you still have the liberty to change your shadings, your border colors. I can take out the entire border of the table if what I just want to do is to create the tabular activity without really showing the lines, and I can choose to put the inner lines. I can choose to put all the borders left, right, and top. So here we are. So inside the table, once you type, you can say I want to create a table that shows serial number, for instance, name, email, phone, address, and I have every other information display inside. So this way we can control our table lines by just once you move your mouse in between, you see the table. You can adjust it as you wish. We'll be doing more of this in our next session tomorrow. You can work with the address and the rest. That way you can populate your table with whatever content you feel you need to. Now the good thing is, if you already have an existing table in Microsoft Word, I didn't mention this in our training today, you can just go copy and paste. So you don't necessarily have to type. Same thing with Excel. If you already have a table that you're working with in Excel, now like I said, they are all Microsoft suite, so it means that they work seamlessly with each other. So you can just pick, copy, and just paste here. So that's about the table. So these are to create photo albums. You can play around all these other ones. The shapes, you can choose to draw any form of shape, whether you want to draw a rounded edge tables. This orange knob here gives you the liberty to adjust the round corners. If it were just to be a clear rectangle, you use the one without the round edge. You can pretty much use any of these tools. So depending on what you're trying to achieve, like this young man here, if I wanted to depict him saying something, I just pick one of these call out shapes that look like what is being used in a lot of newspaper or cartoon characters. I can turn this from left to right, adjust this one as I will, and once I press enter in between, I can type inside, depending on what you're trying to achieve. So those are the major things you need to know about some of these objects. The text area we've already seen. You just select the text, click where you want to type, and start typing. The best way I like to use is select the text, draw a rectangle, meaning that I've defined the area I want my text to be. My text would not, no matter how much text, it will not exceed the width that I've drawn for it. That way you can control the neatness of your text or objects that you're dropping on the PowerPoint slide. So same thing. So pretty much a lot of things that you want to work with are in this insert tool. There's what we call the smart art. And let me go to another blank screen, a new slide, blank one. I come to smart art. Smart art helps you draw artworks that are already defined. Most likely things that you might need, and because you're not all of us that will use PowerPoint are artistic. We're not very creative in drawing, so there are a lot of ideas around objects and shapes that I want to draw. So I can pick any one. So things from a pie chart, a what we shared earlier was an organogram. Yes. So this is all. This is if what you're looking for has to do with lists, you can go to list. It is a process that you're trying to define. So you pick the art that looks close to what you want to define. So for instance, I might want to describe that, well, before you can use our solution, you will first register. After registration, you update profile. After you update profile, you make payment. Maybe I just want to define something this simple with PowerPoint, and I can change the colors to whatever I want. I can, you know, give it whatever feel that I think I want to give it in terms of all this round edged shadow effect. And let's say I want to say I just want to copy this text format so that for consistency, paste it here, centralize this text, and say the simple or three simple steps to get started. So things like this are very easy to represent with PowerPoint. And if I decide to view this on full screen and I'm talking through a solution, it only just but makes sense. Why? Instead of sending a very lengthy wordy document in form of proposal or company profile that once somebody reads one page or the other, he gets bored. Okay, now that's you playing around smart art in PowerPoint. You can also draw a chart depending on what you want to achieve, whether it's a bar chart, whether it's a line or a pie chart or area. Yeah, we have the bar chart here, or map, whatever. So now, if I want to give a pictorial view of our current COVID-19 whatever in a pie chart format, I just choose a pie chart. That way, when you're discussing with executive, not everybody wants to start looking at detailed numbers, but with graphics, this is what they call infographics. With just more graphics, less text, it helps create a lasting picture of what you're trying to interpret to anybody. So I can say, oh, Lagos, Abuja, Kano, and Oyo. So I enter the value for Lagos to say, let's say 50. I enter the value of Abuja to say 25. I enter the value of Kano to say 20. And I enter the last value to say 30. Let's say these are different values around. So the caption is not sales, let's say COVID-19. That way, I have given a pictorial view of let me copy this so I can cut it, Control X, the same way you cut object from your normal Word document. So I come to a new slide, which I've tried to push another blank slide, but it's coming before the last one, so I can drag this one down and paste here. So if I were to describe something with this slide, it's easy to say, well, this is the current state. Let me just copy this. I like to maintain consistency, so that's why I tend to encourage you to copy an existing font size that has represented maybe like a header, copy another font size that has represented the body of your text. So there's consistency in size and your document. This way, we've been able to say current statistics of COVID-19. So this way you can say you have also created additional slides to discuss something else. Now we've looked at bar charts, comments. We'll talk about this one tomorrow. But essentially, text box, we talked about it. Header and footer. Yes, I didn't mention this earlier. Header and footer is just to create, just the same way you have in your Microsoft Word, where you want to include on every slide. I want every slide to have the date somewhere in the bottom, maybe slide number, then a footer text to say www.alphagalleon.org. You either apply to this page or you apply to all documents. So by default, while you're running through your slide, that is the footer. It means that it will be a consistent view. The date on the left, the website on in the middle, and the page number on the right. So while you're running through your slide, you can have an idea of where you are. So these are some very interesting things that is important that we put we have basic understanding of before we meet again tomorrow. So we'll talk about every other thing. So now we move to design. Design is basically you picking up different templates or themes for your slide. So if I'm in a hurry, I want to quickly do a PowerPoint presentation. I don't want to design by myself. I just quickly want to make something very nice. I click this one. Oh, I think this is nice. It applies to all the pages. So if I visit my page now, you can see that the template rearranges my layout based on what the template is designed for. So you can see my table of content now carries the arrow. My pages are looking, a bit sleek. So these are the kind of things that you might want to leverage on when you're in a hurry to make your presentation rather. But the good thing is that we'll be learning how to do our own unique designs because when it comes to presentation and brand, you want to be unique. You don't want to go and send in your slides or send in your company profile to an organization and somebody who chose the same template or the same thing. You guys will be looking not original. So those are things you need to consider while you're using your theme. So another thing we have here under design is your slide size. You can either have it in the standard, which is a portrait format, or a widescreen, which is a landscape format. Now the standard is to say your page will be looking smaller, more of the height and the width are equal size. When you preview that, your slide is in the middle of the screen. So depending on the kind of screen where you are presenting, and if you decide to convert this to PDF, it will be a much more slimmer document. But you can also have your slide in the widescreen format, which takes the entire screen resolution irrespective of where you are presenting from or whatever format you try to use. I always prefer the widescreen because it gives me more space for more objects and components and lets my design turn out a lot better. So an example of the landscape theme is this one. You can see that the page design is in the middle of this PDF document that I'm running through, and we also have another one that looks we're looking for something that is just going to be wider. So this is another wider version that you can see that it had to reduce the size. So if I decide to view it in the full screen mode, you see it takes the entire screen. So those are just the purpose for that. So depending on how everybody is a designer. I'm sure when you want to leave your house, the combination of how you wear your shirt, your trouser, and your shoe, it comes with your own design sense. Everybody has what he appreciates more. I've done a lot of very fantastic design in terms of even websites that when you present it to the owner will just say, I don't like it. It's looking. You just say, what kind of rubbish is this one? Because everybody's eyes towards designs are different. So I'm sure when you start using PowerPoint, you probably know the kind of components you want to use. Finally, there's what we call the format background. The format background enables you to change the color of your background. So we currently have a solid fill, meaning that it doesn't have any form of effect. So I can either change it to black, change it to whatever color I choose to change it to. It fills the entire screen. But when I choose a gradient is a combination of different colors. So I can have the top part maybe red and the lower part maybe green. So this is how the page will look like. So depending on what you want to achieve, the red is too harsh. So let's just say white. And when you move your object, it determines how far you want or how much areas you want the green to cover. Same thing with this white part. So don't forget, you either have a solid or you have a gradient. When you have the gradient, you choose which of the colors you want to use. Sometimes you can have multiple colors. So it means I have 3 gradients. But what we do most time with this is to make sure we use it to soft pedal the green. So the green doesn't just cut off at the middle of the gradient. So we'll be looking more into this if you have questions. But these are things that you play around with. They never destroy your software, I can assure you. Don't worry about whatever you press. If you feel that you've done something that you are not able to reverse, you can always contact me on WhatsApp with this number. So 081-611-77834. That way I can help you resolve whatever issue you're having. Now we want to move to the next thing we have on our PowerPoint presentation, which is transition. Now transition, let me take this back to white. I usually don't like dark slides. Okay, so transition are actually a form of animation by the name transition, how you move from one slide, the effect that you have from one slide to the other. So at the moment, if I go to the full screen, which you either press F5 on your keyboard or you click on this slideshow knob at the bottom right, if I'm moving to the next slide, you'll notice that it changes to the next slide that I have. But in this case, when I say we add a transition to this slide, let's say I choose this transition, I go to the next slide and choose another transition. I go to the next slide and choose another transition. I go to the next slide and choose a different transition. I go to this next slide and choose a different transition. What we've done is to say from the first slide to the next slide to the next slide, these are the kind of transitions that I want to have. While they look very nice, it's not cool to have too many transitions for a professional presentation because you would start distracting your audience with your transitions. Serious business people don't have time for fun. Your presentation will start looking like that of a joker. So what I usually advise is that you choose the fade in, fade out, which is what I use all the time, which is what a lot of people use all the time. It's very simple. It has a very slick effect. Then you apply it to all, meaning that all the slides on your document will have that transition. So when you're moving from one slide to another, there's just this easy in and out from the first slide to the other slide. This is not the most preferred transition. I highly recommend this because this is very cool. With my experience, it looks very nice and very professional. Now, if I want to create an emphasis on this slide, I might want to give this particular slide a different transition deliberately so I can call the attention. So while I'm presenting and I want to talk around different things to say, I'm presenting to my GM, for instance. So my GM, this is the Manager Empowerment Program for this year. We want to talk you through this, that. Maybe where I want to collect money from the GM now, I need him to allocate maybe like a 200K to our own program alone. When I get to that slide, I probably want to create an effect so I can catch his attention. So at this point, there are 3 things you need to do. Register, update, make payment. That way, you've called people's attention. So there's nothing wrong in using multiple transition effects. What I don't advise is that for every slide, you should start having different transitions. It will be distracting. For the purpose of practice, you can play around all this. But for professionalism, I would suggest you don't do that. So now, the next thing we want to look at is animation. So compared to transition, animation is the particular effect to give every object in your presentation. So for instance, I'm on this particular slide and I want this Manager Empowerment Program to float in. which is an effect that I really like. So I can either say it floats in from top or from bottom, whichever option you like. You can choose the effect. So what happens is once you have an object selected, you can choose the effect and choose whatever sub effect you want to give to it. And I'll say, oh, my next page. Now, because these are different objects, I can say they should fly in. You see, they fly in one by one because they're different objects. I can now say, well, I want them to fly in from the left to the right. Choose direction here. I can say they should fly in. You can see by default it's flying in by paragraph. If I want them to fly in all at once, they fly in all at once. If I want them to fly in one at a time, but the one that seems cool for a table of contents would be for them to fly in one after the other. So that applies to every other page. I might land to this page and I just want this image to bounce in, so you can choose that effect and leave it that way. For this guy, I want him to fade in. As soon as he fade in, his statement also just maybe appear, something simple. So these are the kind of things that you can manage. Here I can say, well, for each of these objects, I want this guy to float in one by one. So each one of them come in one by one. That way I can talk through each of these effects. Now, very importantly, I want this last slide to zoom. Yeah, zoom. Now, for every effect that I have created across each of these slides, I have the default option on click, meaning that I have to press something before that slide comes up. That effect takes place. So I'm on this page. I've not done anything. All I see is this is an initiative from our boss, Jason. And I click, and you have Manager Empowerment Program. I click before it changes. I click before the next object comes in. I click, 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 click. So that's how it works. Now, if I want a particular transition to just take effect without me clicking, so let's say the table of content, I don't want to click. I don't want it to wait for me to click. So I select on it. As soon as I give it the effect, or anytime I want to go back to work on it, I just select on it, and I come to start here. You see, on click, I change it to either with previous or after previous. With previous means that as soon as the transition ends, it comes with it. After means that, okay, as soon as the transition ends, as soon as the last transition ends, before it begins. So I can say after transition and probably just reduce the seconds, because you can put the duration it takes before it takes its own effect. So these are the kind of little things that we'll be also looking at tomorrow when we have a proper design and a proper effect for what we've learned. So at the moment, these are basically some of the things we'll be looking at. So if I click on the next one now, without having to press anything, you can see how they just came in. Why? Because I said they should come in after the other one. So now, if I come back here and increase this number, these are some little things, depending on what you want to achieve. You see the time it takes for each of them to come out is a bit slower because I increase the duration it takes to execute this particular action. So these are basic things that I want us to touch for today. I'm sure tomorrow, once we come up, we'll be able to look at more interesting things. We'll be working with the same tool. The only difference is that we'll be doing a more professional slide and be more articulate with how we spend our time on them. Thank you very much. I hope this turns out very helpful.